At first, he was just a man with a dream. I met him back in elementary school, back in our little town in Texarkana. There was no MMA talk back then and no WWE. It was just a small town with not a lot of stuff going on. We went to the same elementary school, though, and he was somebody that was always ignored. Unfortunately, you could smell him before you seen him, if that makes sense. God bless his little heart, you know. He was always a funky little fella. And in our little school, he was picked on quite a bit. Unfortunately, nobody really liked him. I guess that really won't be a surprise for a lot of you. But that is where we met in elementary school. One day, oh yeah, we went to elementary school back in the 70s. So you guys are right. Everybody who thought Mr. Clownamal was an old man, guess what? You're right. Mrs. Clown is here to tell you that we went to school in the 70s. Back when there was disco music. But back then it was all just Clown being ignored. One Valentine's Day in third grade, he went ahead and he tried to give me a Valentine card. Unfortunately, this guy was such a immature, like he didn't really even know how to speak back then. We didn't even know if he could actually talk. He handed me a card though, and he just didn't say anything. All of our classmates wind up picking on that boy. And unfortunately, all he did was quiver that crusty, dirty little lip of his. And everybody made fun of him. I mean, I didn't want to, but I do have to admit that I did laugh. Years later, we were still going to school, and I seen him in middle school. Back in middle school, I did see him grow up quite a bit. Unfortunately, not in the way that would make him look any better. He got really big, like morbid obese big. He was being picked on quite a bit, and his smell had just gotten even worse and worse and worse. I knew that he had a crush on me at that point, but there was no way in hell that I could ever associate with a boy like that. So we lost track. I knew that he always liked me, though. There was just some things you can't deny, especially in a small town that we grew up in. I had to go about my own way in life, though. I moved to a bigger city right outside of Texarkana, where I got a job picking up shifts at a nightclub, doing dancing at the strip club. I like to call myself an exotic dancer. Not so much a stripper, but that is where I met my first husband, Billy Bob, and he was quite the man. I really fell in love with him, and we had 4 kids back to back. Unfortunately, he told me I had to quit the strip club, and he ended up going to prison. He got sentenced to like about 20 years. So there I was, 19 years old with 3 kids, and I wind up having to move back to my shithole town of Texarkana. I moved back in with my mom and my 3 babies, and my room was just how I left it. On my counter, though, my mother had placed a whole bunch of mail. I had Christmas cards, birthday cards, Valentine's Day cards, all from that stinky fat boy I went to school with. Yes, old little fat clown had written me so many letters. It was quite disturbing, actually. But my mother, bless her heart, she was just so impressed with his dedication to me. You really should talk to him. You know, he has changed, she said. I thought about it for a while, but how much could change in such a short time? Like, people who don't leave this shit town, they really don't do much with their lives. But one day I decided to go out, and there he was at the bar, sitting alone. I did smell him before I seen him, per usual. This time I walked straight up to him and said, "Don't you ever send me another letter to my mother's house." He stood there with his fat, crusty, broken lip shivering, and I said to him, "Speak, boy." And then he spoke. He told me that he'd been looking for me on MySpace.com, and he'd written them letters thinking that I had been injured. So he was checking on me, and that he always cared for me because I was nice to him. So I told him straight up, I've got 3 babies and my man is in prison, probably for life. He said he didn't care. He was ready to be a father. And so there you have it. We started shacking up pretty immediately, and he became a father to our children, our 3 children. So that's the first chapter. That was Mrs. Arkansas. Oh my gosh. Why are you spamming the chat like that? Okay, you do like how do you like my country accent? I'm not really good at accents. How do you like my accent? So my country accent, I'm from Texarkana. Okay, thank you. I feel like my accent's not that great, but I'm gonna try. So basically, that was my first story as Mrs. Clown. That's how we met, and what ended up happening next. I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward to his dream, Clown's dream. So Clown's dream was to always be something bigger than what he was. He was bullied and he was overlooked in our town, and he was not really respected. But I will say, as he grew up and got older, he did change a little bit. Like, I'm the one who told him about deodorant. I'm the one who told him how to take showers, as much as possible. I will say that when we first got together, he was showering about, you know, once every other day. But as our marriage ended, and I'm talking about recently it ended, he was down to about 1 shower every 2 months. So you can imagine how hard it was for me and my children. We've got 3 kids. I don't have any babies with Clown. I'll get into that later. But impotence is a word that you might want to look up. I told Clown that I did not have any money and I did not want to go back to the club when we first got together. He promised me that he could take care of me and provide for my children, our children. And I stood by him during these times where he didn't have nothing. We moved into his parents' shack on the farm. And this farm is so dirty and nasty. It was full of like feces everywhere. When I first got there, I had to tell him I cannot live like this. I'd moved to the city, so I knew better. But he got that Clown in shape. He was really working hard when we first got together, which was always nice to have, And slowly but surely, I started to see the potential in him. One day, he told me that he wanted to go into wrestling. We did have a little country bar in our town where we did some backyard wrestling, but Clown just couldn't handle it. He never been strong, although he was mighty big. Big man. He was a fat man. He just wasn't strong. He was weak. And he never had the confidence to really fight with a man. He was never believing in himself like a man should. I always had to pump him up and tell him that he could do it. So one fight, he really ended up hurting himself and he lost. And I remember sitting there watching him cry and cry and cry. And I told him, "You've got to think of something else. Maybe there's something you can do. Have you ever thought of being a promoter?" And there you have it. He got an idea stuck in that little pea brain head of his, and his idea was formed. He said, "Hey, I think I can be a promoter, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try it online." So there he was. I became the producer, the crisis management team, the tech support, because Lord tells you that, this guy does not even know how to work a computer. He did not even know how to type. I had to teach him how to type with the typewriter game just so he can learn how to type. And what did Mr. Clown do? He yelled and he screamed and he lacked confidence. And I told him, just try it, man. Just try it. Just one night, I told him, get your ass up off that couch, eating all my baby's juices, and start to earn a living and a name for yourself. So he turned on YouTube, youtube.com. He turned on that website and he went for it. At some point, he decided to do MMA analysis, and he was doing all right. I was having to do the research for him because that poor man, he does have an addiction to eating. I swear that man would eat up all of my baby's foods. One time we had to put a lock on the refrigerator. He just could not get out of that refrigerator. I thought it was so shameful. His mother and father came down to the house and they chewed him out. I remember his dad went outside and he got like a little branch from the tree just to beat him, to let him know that if he does not stop eating all my baby's food, there would be some real problems. That actually ended up helping some things out there. I did what I had to do as a wife and a mother, though, and I did my MMA analysis for him. Yes, you heard it right. I was the one doing the work. Eventually, that turned into doing a live stream. Again, that came from me. I taught him what a live stream was, and he did it. His first time, I sat there silently watching him with cue cards. I had cue cards up for that man, and he was struggling. People out there were just making fun of him left and right. And then suddenly, he snapped. And I never seen him get so red in the face. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. I remember going up to him, and he just put his hands up like, hold on, wait. And there you have it. His live stream turned into a pure warfare. So he went down from breaking fights to starting fights. First, it would only last about an hour or so, and it was okay. But eventually, 1 hour turned into 2 hours, to 6 hours, to 12 hours, and I couldn't get him to get up. Sometimes I'd go downstairs to check on him, and I would almost pass out from the stench. I found out that he wasn't even getting up to use the restroom anymore. My husband has started to defecate on himself. He was defecating on himself and pissing on himself. My kids was crying because of the stench going through the vents. We were so scared some nights we would just sit there in our rooms and we would hold each other all night long, just hoping that he would just stop and end it. I never wanted them to see that side of their daddy because they did come to love him. They did. They really did come to love him, but it was really, really hard. I ended up having to move out of the house into the parents' house, which was still on the same land, but I just couldn't take it anymore, and it wasn't right for the kids to deal with that. He would wake me up in the middle of my sleep saying, "Did you see that? See what they tweeted? Did you see this? Did you see that comment?" I just couldn't take it anymore. We are living in Texarkana. We're trying to make a better life for ourselves, but somehow he got so wrapped up in the nonsense that the views became validation that he was seeking. He stopped going outside. He got so pale and so big. He was always dirty. His ego became an addiction. It was almost like he became a rabid dog, some would say. It was tough. I would say, "Can we have dinner?" And he would just say, "After this stream." That stream would just never end, you know? Okay, I'm back. I'm back as the Caged Queen. So Anakin looks like he's liking the story. Hunt, hopefully you're liking it too, and you're not being a hater. You better not be a hater. Hopefully you're enjoying it. But yeah, this is like the story of Mrs. Clown. You can see she's been going through it. So the next part of the story is going to be about the band. So Mrs. Clown is back to tell this part. We're going to talk about the band now. You know, when you build your career on just yelling, screaming nasty nonsense at strangers online, eventually one of the biggest social media video platform on the planet Earth is going to say, no, God forbid you tell that man no. So one night he was streaming and just rattling on. I could hear him from the big house. His mother and father and I were just standing outside there by the house, and we were looking at each other. We just did not know what to do. His daddy looked at me, and his mother looked at his dad, and I said, I just can't take it anymore. I cannot take it. This is just too much. We've got a family to take care of. You know, by this time, my kids were in middle school themselves. His father said, I think I'm going to have to do what I've got to do to protect my son. His mother stood there with tears rolling down her eyes, and I knew what was going to happen. They went back into the house and they logged into the computer themselves, and they reported him to the YouTube police. Yes, there you have it. You always wanted to know who reported your channel and got you banned from YouTube. It was your family, us, the family you abandoned